starting here. It's all recording right now. All right, so several things before we get started. My name is Tak. I see some familiar faces, people who have taken my classes before. I also see some new faces. So we'll talk about the class, or the co-requisite of this class as soon as I log in. This class does not use D2L. I use Moodle for all of my classes. Those of you who have been using D2L might notice that they're using a new version of D2L this semester. And from what I understand, it is quite different from the previous version of D2L. Moodle is Moodle. The URL of Moodle, as you can see, is pretty easy. Instead of d2l.losreals.edu, we have Moodle, moodle.losreals.edu. You guys can follow me and just go to that website right now. And then use your username. It's the same username that you use in D2L. It's W, and then followed by your 7-digit student ID. I have a slightly different one because I'm a teacher on this website. But you can use your W followed by 7-digit student ID to sign into the system. And the password is the same password that you use throughout the district. So as soon as you type in your password and your username and password, you should see a screen similar to this one, but not have as many items as I see here. Because I put all my classes here, that's why I see a lot of entries. But for you, you might only see 1 or 2 entries on the left-hand side under My Courses. Is everybody at that point right now?
No.
No? Okay. That's okay, I'll explain that. You have to get to use a browser first. Firefox would work. Double click. All right. Mine also looks a little bit different because I dock all of my my panels here. You can do the same if you want to. If you don't want to do the same, then your screen will look kind of more like this. Okay, so it's up to you to kind of customize how you want to lay out your screen and hide certain panels out of your view. Any questions at this point? Okay, if there's one thing you have to write down on a piece of paper in case you might forget, it is the URL of this website, because everything is going to be on that website. So as long as you remember how to log in to Moodle, get to your account, everything should be okay. Any other questions? Okay, if there are no questions, I'll go into this class. This is cisp362 Programming for Mobile Devices 1. Okay, and once again, your screen will not look the same as mine because I'm looking at it from the professor perspective. So let me switch role to a student. So this way I can show you exactly what you should be seeing.
Oh, excuse me. I can see how you got to the screen.
I signed in, and then that should be. You have to sign in first. All right. So for those of you who have signed in at this point, this is what you should be seeing. You will see certain items grayed out. I'm trying to use this kind of new feature of Moodle for restricted access. So this way, people will actually have to read the syllabus first and acknowledge that they know where to find it and have read it before they can proceed with the rest of the class. Yes?
The date for the class and the final exam date is wrong in the syllabus.
It's probably wrong because I forgot to update it for this class.
It's Tuesday, Thursday.
Yep. So we'll address that when we get to the syllabus, but thank you. So right now, the only thing you can do is the syllabus acknowledgement, which is the second item from the screen, and also the optional survey. You can do the survey anytime you want to. It does not have any point values, but it does help me understand the class a little bit better because I know there are people coming back to this class after taking most of the other programming classes. So those people are ready to write code in Java. But there are also people who are taking this class concurrently when they're taking cisp300. So those people may not be ready for actually writing any code. So I need to understand my class a little bit better before I kind of really get into the core subject. So I would click syllabus acknowledgement first. Okay, I'm just gonna bump up the font size so we can see a little bit better. And this is what it looks like. It is in the form of a test, but it really is not a test. Okay, this is the only way I can set it up so that people will have to finish this before they unlock the content of the other sections. Okay, so what I would do is I will continue the last attempt because I tried it already, so that's why it's a continuation. So as soon as you continue the attempt, you will see a single question. Okay, and it's not even a question. Let me just read it to you. This activity lets you acknowledge that you know where to find the syllabus and that you have visited the links, read and understood the syllabus. Do not submit this choice until you have done all of the above. Okay, and I will kind of go through this whole process with you. So I'm going to leave the screen at this point and not answer anything. And then you have two choices when it comes to visiting the getting to the syllabus. You can go to the syllabus in PDF. You can also get to the syllabus in HTML, which is the one that I'm going to use right now. And here's the syllabus. It has one mistake with the final exam schedule, and I'll fix that later. Is everybody here, or at least know how to get to the screen?
I don't know how to get here. Keep the start tab.
Okay, right click here and then start it. The second one. The second one.
Right.
Yeah, right click. And then right click. And you okay. I think I don't know. Or you can just click it. Just go ahead and click.
Right click.
Just click that.
Here.
Yeah.
Right or there?
Just regular click. Okay, now you right click. That's fine. Open link in new tab. All right. So, yep.
It's not letting me log in.
It's not letting you log in. Are you on the wait list?
Yes.
Okay, if you're on wait list, you cannot sign in. But that reminds me one other thing. Here's the roll sheet. Just initial next to your name under today's date. So I set this up for 5 different class sessions. How many people here are on wait list? Okay, it looks like we have enough room to add everybody from waitlist to the class. So I'll deal with that maybe a little bit after the class. We have a lab session right after this one. So if you cannot sign in because you're on waitlist, just kind of not worry about it at this point because I'm just going to go over the syllabus. Okay, the first link links to the course information. Title, description, those are the ones that you can see on the catalog, especially the online catalog. Student learning objective is not disclosed, as of now, but those are the things that you should be able to accomplish after taking this class. Acquire and install the necessary development tools for mobile device software development. Develop basic programs using a graphical user interface. Test and debug programs with a graphical user interface, and publish mobile device programs. This is a 4-unit class because we have 54 lecture hours and 54 lab hours. The lab hours are right after the lecture hours. Information about myself. Certain things have changed a little bit. I'm trying this, a new way of doing things. Name, I haven't changed that yet. Okay, still TAC. Last name is Aoyang. It's pronounced Aoyang. It's really hard because you can see there are 5 vowels kind of strung together. A-U-Y-E-U. Those are all vowels, right? And then NG is a single consonant at the end. I mean, that makes it pretty hard to pronounce. You should hear what those automatic things have to say about my name when they call me up. My office is number 7 in Liberal Arts 133. 133 is one aisle over on that side, and it is the room, quote-unquote room, with the glass door. So if you want to find me or the dean of the division, you have to go through that door into room 133, and I'm in office number 7. My office hours on Mondays and Wednesdays are from 8 o'clock to, oh, that's the wrong time. It's 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock because I'm here right now. It cannot be office hour right at this point. So I'm gonna have to fix that too. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, it's from 9:30 to 10:30. And on Fridays, it is quote-unquote online from 9 to 10 o'clock. But I will answer email on Fridays, definitely. The phone number is 916-484-8250. If you leave a message on my phone, it will actually be sent to me as a voice file in email. Okay, so it's kind of cool, a cool feature. My email address, that's the one that has changed. So instead of using one single email address for everything, which means email address, my email messages will roll off the screen in 5 minutes. This is only for my teaching class, my teaching job here, and only for this semester. So I'm trying this way and see whether it will help improve things a little bit, so I can easily distinguish what is junk mail, what is social messages, and what are related to my classes. So use this particular email address, even though you might have my other email addresses. This is the one that I will check more often. The online classroom URL is what you see here, with Moodle. But I'm listing it here too, just so that if someone wants to print it out, they can also see where to get the stuff. Class meetings. This is incorrect because I forgot to update my syllabus for this particular class. So the first thing I want to do is to figure out what is the exam time. So to figure out the exam time for all of your classes, you can go to, let's see, I don't think the exam schedule has a quick link yet. It's not quite that time. So you go to schedule of classes, and then I just look for final exam schedule. This is a day class, and it starts at 9 o'clock. So that means it's Monday, Wednesday, between 8:15 and 9:25 a.m. So according to this, the exam time, or the final exam time for this class, is December 16th from 8 to 10 a.m. So are there any questions about the final exam time? Questions? Okay. In fact, I'll do one thing. Oh, I can't. I'll do that later. Classroom policies and rules and stuff like that. Acceptable excuses, or excuses that I have to accept. These are the only 3 that I have to accept. Everything else will be kind of at my discretion. If you're sick and you have a doctor's note, by college rule, by district rule, I have to accept that you will get extra time for your homework assignment, and you can take a test later if that has to be arranged. Jury duty and also military duty with a copy of the notice, those are also excuses that I have to accept. Attendance, now this part is also important. College, this is actually quoted from the college catalog, but I'll just kind of highlight the more important part. A student may be dropped from any class when that student's absences exceed 6% of the total hours of class time. This is a 16-week class, so basically anyone who missed 2 sessions will have more than 6% of absences. This only counts for unexcused absences. If it is excused, it does not count to these 6%. Are there any questions about what is considered excessive absences? Questions? Okay. You can read the rest here. Basically, it talks about if you are sick, you need to get a verification. If you don't have a personal physician, you can still go to the health center on campus, and they will sign a note if they think you're sick. Okay, so they will give you a note and to make sure that you can let me know that you are sick on that day. Attendance for online classes doesn't apply to this class because we are face-to-face. So for this class, most typically I would just use a roll sheet to figure out who's here and who's not. I usually do this maybe 10 minutes into the class, 5 minutes into the class. If you walk in a little bit late, no problem. Just make sure that at the end of the class you can get back to the roll sheet and put your initials on the roll sheet. Talking about which? Okay, classroom and lab behavior. It applies to this room because we have both the lecture and also the lab here. You can see the big sign over there. No food, drinks, phones for kids. That reminds me of one thing, because I don't want my phone to be the first one that rings in my own classes. So I'm gonna turn it off, or turn off the ringer. If you have an Android phone, there's a really cool app called Silence Scheduler. Let me just go there and put this class into the schedule. What it does is, it's a scheduler. Silence, how do I spell silence? S-I, of course. Okay. It's really cool because it let you, enter a particular time slot on certain days in a week that it will turn off the ringer. But as soon as it's after that time slot, it will turn the ringer back on. Because my problem is, after I turn off the ringer, manually, most of the time I'll forget to turn it back on. And then people would call me, getting frustrated, and say, "Why, how come you're not picking up the phone and my calls?" This will basically, avoid all of those problems. You just have to add, and then you specify the time. Silence begin at, in this class, 9 o'clock, ends at 12 o'clock. And this is a Monday, Wednesday class. Save. And it is immediately effective. Okay, it finds out that the current time is within that time slot, and it turns off the ringer right away.
What is it called?
It's called Silence Scheduler. Silence Scheduler is a free app, and I find it to be really, really useful for classes. You can still have the vibration mode turned on if you're expecting some important phone calls and whatnot, but don't pick up the call inside the classroom. If you have to answer the call because it's important, just kind of walk outside of the classroom, finish your phone call conversation, and then come back into the classroom. Any behavior in the classroom or lab that interferes with teaching or learning is not tolerated. This includes disruption, bullying, excessive chatting, and so on. Certain things are kind of interesting. This was a new item. I had to add it because of an experience with one of my students bringing in a dog that had, that would pant loudly the entire time, and it would turn around and lick the student behind him. Okay. So after 2 classes like that, I had to tell the student not to bring in the dog. It was not a helping dog in any way, so it's really just a pet in that case. No eating or drinking. In this classroom, because we do have computers in front of everybody, so if you need to drink water, just kind of step away from your desk first. If you want to drink fresh water, just plain water. Coffee or anything that's sugary, I still would not open it in this classroom. You can bring the container in as long as it is capped. Okay. Non-compliant students will be asked to leave the classroom, and if if the student does not comply, I can get the security personnel to help me out. I have never had to do that. Conduct code. And this part has to do with academic honesty. Well, this honesty, but basically it's just, making sure that everybody understands, what I mean by academic honesty. My definition is an act of deception in which a student claims credit for work or effort of another person or persons, people, or use unauthorized material or fabricate information in any academic work. It occurs when students attempt to show possession of a level of competency, knowledge, or skill that they do not possess. Okay, so this is how I count, or how I define academic dishonesty. It may be reported to administration. It can lead to expulsion from college, eventually. And anyone involved in academic dishonesty would not receive points for the work submitted, and so on. So this is something that you really should read, just to make sure. I think most people understand what it is, and but I just want to make sure that we are all on the same page. And in this class, by default, all work, including assignments, quizzes, and exams, are expected to be completed as follows. Independently, which means without the aid of anyone during or prior to the activity, and also originally, which means without copying from some other people. Are there any questions about this particular slide? No questions? Okay. And now we are getting into grading. For all of my classes, not only this one, an F means somebody gets less than 12.5% of all the possible points. A D is from 12.5% to up to 37.5%, and then a C is from 37.5% to 62.5%. A B is 62.5% to 87.5%, and anyone with at least 87.5% would get an A in my classes. But I have found that the distribution of A, B, C, D, F in my classes is pretty much the same as all of the other classes, equivalent classes. So this scale doesn't make it any easier. The components for a class like this one will have 20% allocated to homework assignments or in-class assignments, 40% to the final exam, 20% to the first exam, which is 1/3 through the class, and another 20% to the second exam, which is about 2/3 through the class. That's how the points are all split up. Any questions about the letter grade equivalence or how to get points, in this class? The distribution of points in this class. Questions? Okay. Grading FAQ. Score is based on observable academic competence and not effort. In other words, I have had students who approach me and say, but I spent a lot of time on this already. How come I'm not getting the points that I think I should be getting? Well, it has to be observable, when people are taking an exam or in homework assignments. If it's not observable to me in an exam or a quiz or homework assignment, I cannot give the points. I'm not going to use multiple choice in this test, in tests for this class, so I'm going to ignore this part. And some questions are graded based on key indicator. I'm going to try my best to improve the way I grade the test, so it will be more kind of rubric based, just so that people can differentiate, okay, for this portion of this question, why am I getting this many points? So I'm hoping that it will help in that fashion. There will be no late submission, unlike some of the other classes, some other professors. I do not take late submission, so if it's late, it doesn't get any points. All right, we're almost done here. Tips. All right. I don't have a problem with people or students in this class helping out other students. From my experience teaching out of other classes that have labs and homework assignments, students who help other students tend to understand the material actually better, because when people explain something, it somehow uses a different portion of the brain, and it actually improves the understanding of the subject matter. I have done programming for a long time, okay, before I started to teach, but it's only after I started to teach that I really get a better understanding of stuff that I have done, and it really happens interestingly like that. If you're helping some other students in this class, how do you avoid being considered dishonest, or making sure the other person is not considered dishonest? How do you help someone in a class like this? So let's say there's a homework assignment. Okay, I gave out a homework assignment, and another student approaches you and say, well, I don't quite get it, how to get started with this homework assignment, or I got started, I'm stuck here. Okay, what do I do next? What would you do if you are the person who was asked to help and you're willing to help?
What have you tried so far?
Okay, what have you tried so far? Again, and then if the description of the steps, has something that's missing or incorrect, you can fix that, right away. That's a good start. So what if the student, tells you that everything is okay up to this point? That student just has a problem of not being able to proceed, at this point.
Send them links.
Sorry?
Send them links that you found helpful.
Send them links, okay, like my links to my YouTube class lectures. Yes, that might be helpful. Anything else? Start asking questions. Yes, absolutely. The best way to help out a fellow student is to ask questions and not to give the answer. So use questions to guide the other student to find the answer himself or herself. Okay, so that's a really good tip right there. Okay, keep asking questions. Now, what if the other person gets really irritated and say, you're not being helpful? Okay, I'm asking you for something and you keep asking me questions back. What do you do? What do you do?
They're not my problem.
Sorry?
They're not my problem.
Well, you have to. Well, either way, you have to kind of back off. Because that person is not listening to you anymore. Okay, so you kind of have to back off. But don't give up the approach of asking questions. Do not give in and just say, okay, fine, I'll give you the answer. You do this and that and that and that. Or worse yet, this is my answer. Okay, and then just walk away. Okay, so don't do that. Okay, keep asking questions. Because that's the only way you can truly help somebody else to understand the material. I'm gonna skip financial aid and enrollment of future classes. Basically, there are consequences of people who, well, this happened in the past, and there are people who could not get to the next class or lose financial aid because they were caught, cheating in an exam, so they did not get the grade that they thought they would be getting. Study habit, I don't really have to spend too much time on this one because I think at this point, all of you have a study habit of some kind that you feel is successful or helpful to you. But just to go over this really quickly, read the material a little bit before the class. Okay, you don't have to understand everything that is on the website. Okay, but just kind of go over the concepts enough that you know what I will be talking about on that day. During the lecture, if you want to take notes, go ahead and take notes. The YouTube clips can be helpful if you want to just revisit what I am saying in the class, but it doesn't help with remembering what you are understanding or the questions that you might have during the class. So I would still bring paper and pencil or pen and just take notes occasionally in the class. One thing that you can also do during the class, with a piece of paper and a pencil, is to kind of write down at what time I start to talk about what concept. Okay, now that can be helpful when you're watching the YouTube, because you probably don't want to go through 1 hour and 20 minutes of YouTube, just to find a topic that you want to revisit, because you might only want to revisit 2 minutes of the entire 80 minutes of lecture. So if you write down, just jot down, like, okay, right now it's 9:31 and TAC is starting to talk about blah, blah, blah. Okay, if you just write it down on a piece of paper, when you want to just revisit that little topic, you can fast forward the video clip to 31 minutes, from the beginning, and you'll be almost, at exactly the right place, and you don't have to go through the entire recording. So that's something that you can do during the lecture. And then after the lecture, just kind of go through the notes again to remind yourself, what I have talked about during the lecture. That would be helpful too. All right. Any questions? Any questions? Okay, 7 is kind of the intended schedule for this class. I usually don't follow the schedule that tightly, but this is a tentative schedule of when I will start to talk about what concept in this class. All right. Any questions? Yep.
What does that mean, watching the YouTube?
Watching YouTube?
Oh, YouTube.
YouTube.
I said
Yep.
YouTube.
YouTube. Yep, you can go to YouTube right now and look for SumProfs. SumProf is spelled as SOMEPROFS. It has its own channel. You can subscribe to the channel if you already have an account, and you will get notifications whenever I upload new clips, onto YouTube. I record both what you see on the projector as well as my voice, so you will get a pretty complete picture of what I talk about in the class. All right. Any questions? Are we ready to get into actual Android programming? All right. So let me close this particular screen because I want to keep this one here because this is something that I can do. All right. So getting back to our quiz. So it's called a quiz, but it's not really a quiz. So now that I have shown you how to get to the syllabus, that I have explained it, and hopefully you have understood it, we can select one of these two choices. Your ordering may not be the same, so don't copy my answer. Select one. I refuse to acknowledge. Please drop me from this course. That is an option. Or you can select option 2, B here. I, the student of this course, I, the student of course, that this choice activity is a part of. Now that is really some weird grammar there. Acknowledge that I know where to find the syllabus and that I have read and understood the content of the syllabus in its entirety. So if you're not ready to click that, you don't have to click it, but since I'm ready, I click next. And I will click submit all and finish. And once I have done that, I go back here and they are still locked. Oh. Why is it not?
It unlocked for me. It unlocked.
It unlocked for you? I think that's because I'm not an actual student and it doesn't want to like that. So I'll just go back and return to my normal role. If you have unlocked, if you have done that, it would have unlocked many of the links that you can see. So the syllabus, links will be unlocked, and all of the links of what you will need should be unlocked as well. Okay. Any questions? Is it unlocking for all of you too? That's the MIT App Inventor website. Page not found. I have changed that. Okay. So let me give that a try. Make sure. Well, it gets us close enough, just click home. Okay, so this is what we'll be using for this class, to write our Android apps. For those of you who have taken C++ and Java, you might think, I don't need this, okay? I don't need to write programs like putting Lego pieces together. I know how to type. I can type my programs faster than dragging and dropping. Well, before you make that conclusion and say this is ineffective, this is really a toy type of environment, just go through this a few times and see if you still want to retain your opinion about a graphical programming interface. Because I think even as a programmer, for some tens of years, I still find this interface to be quite useful. Okay. So this is the home page, of the App Inventor website. It's helpful, but it's the setup guide for some reason is not. I got the wrong link here. So if you go to Explore, it has a setup here, and this is the URL. And how come my URL is not working?
It's the old one. You have the old link.
I have the old link?
Yeah.
Alright, let's change that. Oh, they got rid of the content. That's what they did. Okay, so now it's updated. This link should work now, and it should bring you to this particular page. So these are the things that you have to do in order to use the programming tool that we'll be using for this entire semester. You can read through this stuff, or I can read through my stuff here, which outlines what you will need in order to do your homework assignments in this class. First of all, internet access. Now, I'm not just talking about internet access when you're ready to turn in your homework assignment. You will need internet access continuously while you work on the programming assignments. Okay, you can use the lab here. Okay, you can use the lab period of this class to do your homework. You can also use room 152, in order to do your homework assignment if you do not have full-time internet access otherwise. But this is something that you do need in order to do your homework. The second part is a Google account. Fortunately, you already have a Google account. Your apps.lostreels.edu account is a Google account, and you can use that for the purpose of using this tool. So are there any questions about that part? Okay, let me show you what I mean by that. Okay, just so that we are sure what we are talking about. So what I'll do is I'm going to sign off as my usual account here, and I will sign in to apps.lostreels.edu. This part applies to both me and you. No. See, the question asked me, do you want to reset it now? And then the answer is okay or cancel, which doesn't make any sense. It should be yes or no. All right. So I have just signed into my apps.lostreels.edu account, and you can sign into any student who's enrolled in at least one class already have an account like this, and that will be sufficient. Okay, I'll show you the next few steps and explain to you why this will be sufficient. All right. So I have just completed this little slide here that talks about why that you need internet access to use the tool. And you will need a Google account, but you don't need a new Google account. You can use your student account for this college or for this district as your Google account. Next up is Java. Whatever machine you want to use to do your homework assignment needs to have Java installed. Most computers have Java already installed, but if you buy a brand new computer, it may not have Java installed. So you got to make sure that you have Java installed on the machine that you want to use for your homework assignments. All of these machines here have Java installed already, so you don't have to worry about it if you want to do your homework here. Are there any questions about installing Java?
How can you tell if you have Java installed?
When we get to the next few slides, you will know. Because if it is not installed, then something is not going to work. Okay, so that's a pretty easy one. This one is a little bit cumbersome, especially the yellow part. I'll get to that part. App Inventor setup is basically little bits of software that you have to install on the machine that you will use for homework assignments. Okay, it's not a whole lot of stuff. I think it's like 90 megabytes or so of stuff to install, but you have to install that first. Fortunately, those tools are available for Windows, Mac OS X, and also Linux. If you go to the MIT App Inventor website, we are now talking about the second step here, install App Inventor software. So if you click that link, I'll just open a new tab so I don't lose the original one. It will give you a link to each major operating system. It has one for Mac OS X, one for Linux, and one for Windows. Is anyone using BSD or some other oddball operating systems? No? Okay. So for this one, you just have to click the right link. If you're using Windows, you click this one, and it will show you the steps that you need to go through to install this. I was checking the other day to make sure all of these machines will work. Unfortunately, this software, was not installed in a way that will work for you. So in order to make use of App Inventor in this classroom setting, you will have to download it and install it every single time. It does not need administrative rights, so you can do it right away and get it installed. Yep.
We just use a remote connection to our own computer, so we don't have to reinstall it every time.
You can do that if you know how to do it. Or you can just reinstall it every time, here. You only have to do it once, okay, for like a 3-hour session. So I don't think it's too much of a trouble, but you do have to go through that process, every time when you use the machine here. It's just when you sign in. Are there any questions? You can go ahead and do it now. So you basically click download to download the installer. It's about 90 megabytes, so it might take a little bit of time to get to it. There's one over there. Okay.
Hey, Ted,
Yep.
this computer's saying that it doesn't have Java installed. I checked every browser.
It does not.
I checked, it's the same thing. Great.
Okay, so that means you probably cannot use the tools as these computers are set up in this lab. I'll talk to Walter and see if I can get it fixed by Wednesday. But there are alternative solutions too, so we'll get to that part. Okay, so this is also what you need to do at home if you want to use your computer at home to do homework assignments. This is also what you need to do on those machines. All right, last component it's optional, okay, which is kind of interesting because this is an Android programming class, but an Android device is actually optional. The reason is you can use an emulator on a PC, so you can actually write your program and run it on an emulated Android device instead of on an actual Android device. I think Android devices can be fairly inexpensive now. Someone told me that you can buy basically used cell phones for real cheap. You don't even need to get a data plan or an actual phone service. In most cases, in some cases you do, because you have to sign into a Google account. And so this step is optional. Yep. It works for you?
They don't have the plugins installed for the browser, but they have the jam.
You open it manually, go to download some stuff.
Okay. So the web start doesn't start automatically.
Yeah, you just get to download stuff and stuff.
Okay.
That file.
Yeah, that might have to do with the browser too.
They have the Java runtime environment. They don't have the plugins for the browser installed. So it has Java runtime on it, so you can open up the JMP file. But that's it.
Okay. All right. So how many people are planning to use an actual Android device for this class? Okay, a few. All right, very good. It will run a lot faster with an actual Android device. There are two ways to use an actual Android device. You can use it as wired. In other words, you plug in your USB cable to your Android device and then program it through the USB cable. But App Inventor also has a Wi-Fi, wireless, option to go through your Google account in order to get your Android device programmed. But if you go through that route, then you have to sign in to your whatever Google account you use on your Android device is the one that you have to sign in when you use App Inventor, because it has to make the association. Yep.
You can also do wireless ADB.
Ah, okay. I'm not sure whether it, the App Inventor software itself, knows how to do that. I have not tried that. I know what it is, but I'm not sure whether it can do it or not. All right. And after all these steps, I have this slide that says, but that's too complicated. Well, if that is too complicated, you can use my live Debian distribution, which is what I'm using right now. In other words, I am not using Windows right now at this point. I started the computer using my Debian live distribution. It has all the tools already pre-installed. It has Java pre-installed. It has the App Inventor add-on software pre-installed. It has Chrome pre-installed. Basically, all the tools that you will need for your homework assignments, they're all pre-installed. If you're interested in that option, I can talk about it. If you're not interested, I'm not gonna waste much time on this one. So how many people are interested in this option? Okay. The easiest way to do it is to go to my go to Power. Okay, so this is power.arc.losrios.edu. It's another server on campus. If you scroll down, you will see Dr. Tech's Debian Live CD, and that's a link to a pretty big file. It is 2.1 gigabytes now because I keep adding more packages to it. You can burn it onto a DVD, and then have your PC to boot from DVD, and that's it. You don't need anything else, to make it work. Yep.
Is your live ISO set up to boot persistence or persistent?
If you have a persistent drive, it will use it automatically. Yep.
You just have to think. For yours, it's just live -RW, right? For the persistent drive.
Yeah, there are several ways to do it. It's
Okay.
Yep. But you don't even need persistence because your projects will be saved in the cloud and not onto your own device. So that's the nice thing about using App Inventor is it's already up there. I mean, that it's impossible to lose your project unless you accidentally delete your projects. Right? Okay, so I think some of these topics we can talk about it, during the lab time. But for now, that's all that we have that we are going through. And at the beginning of this class, which is this is the first class, I want you to keep in mind a project, okay? Because I don't want to give you a project to do, it's something that you're not interested in. I want you to think of a project that you think is feasible. Okay, so let me kind of go through this slide first because this slide is kind of important for a project that you can do to get points for this class. I want you to think of a project that is it is fun for you. Okay, you derive some entertainment out of it, or you make it useful for whatever you are doing. 2, it is realistic. In other words, this is not realistic in the sense that it is a good app that you can sell to other people. It's realistic in the sense that you can finish it. So don't get too ambitious. Okay, don't get on a project where it is way beyond your reach. Go for something that is realistic, but it's still challenging enough as an assessment tool. Okay, so that's the last one. It still has to be challenging enough as an assessment tool. Now, because this class has no prerequisite, it only has a co-requisite of CISP 300. I'm not gonna say, oh, you have to write an algorithm to do this and that and integrate everything into the graphical user interface of an Android device. For this class, the algorithm part is out because I cannot make an assumption that you have taken a programming class before. But I'm making the assumption that you are taking a programming class in the same semester. Okay, I'll just do a quick survey here. You don't have to answer if you don't want to. How many people have taken CISP 300 already?
What's the class?
Okay, so let me get to that part. Okay, so the majority of students in this class have taken CISP 300 already, and just from recognizing people that I have seen on campus already, I think many of you have taken CISP 400 and other more advanced classes already. So you're ready for this class. If you're not one of those people who have taken CISP 300 already, you have to be taking CISP 300 in this semester. It is a co-requisite of this class. So to answer your question, let me get to the schedule to show you what I am talking about. Okay, so get to schedule of classes. This is the class that I'm talking about, because if you look at the description of programming for mobile devices 1, it has no prerequisite, but it does have a co-requisite of cisp 300 or cisp 370, which is Visual Basic Programming. So if you're right now taking one of those two classes, you're fine. But if you're not, and you have not taken a cisp 300 class or equivalent class before, you cannot stay in this class. Are we doing okay so far with the co-requisite specification? Yes? Okay, so did I answer your question?
What is 370?
370 is Visual Basic Programming. It's the next one. Beginning Visual Basic. So you have to have taken cisp 300 or 370 before this semester, or you're taking one of those two classes this semester. That is a requirement to be in this class. Okay, so now that I have explained that, shall I continue? All right, so moving on. All right, so that's why I split the description here. If you have never programmed before and you're taking cisp 300 or 370 this semester, this means by the end of the semester, you will have enough knowledge about algorithms to specify the logic of a program. It's kind of nice in a way, if you're taking this class while at the same time taking cisp 300, because P300 in theory is a pseudocode kind of class where you're not actually expected to run the program, whereas this class is hands-on. I mean, we do write code, but without the use of syntax. It's easy to get into. So this class really goes hand in hand with cisp 300 if you're taking cisp 300 this semester. So for people who have not programmed before, you might want to start with a specification of an application that has little or no programming logic whatsoever. Now, what do you do with a program that has no actual programming logic, which means conditional statements, loops, and all the other stuff that you learn in cisp 300? Well, guess what? You can still use, you can still make the program useful, because you can still read sensors from your Android device. You can still perform calculations, because that only requires assignment statements. And you can still print messages and make use of the user interface to reflect readings out of, say, the compass or the accelerometer and other stuff on your Android device. So you can still make this class, or the project for this class, somewhat useful, even though it may not contain any type of logic from the algorithm perspective. Am I doing okay so far explaining this to people who have not taken cisp 300? If you have written programs before because you have taken other programming classes, I think it'll be more fun if you try to shoot for something, a project that requires some kind of logic in your program to make it more fun. Okay? It's not a necessary requirement, because there's no such prerequisite that you have to know programming before this class. But I think if you already know how to do it, go ahead and try it out. Make your program more interesting. So, any questions at this point? Yep.
So then you need a third thing. You need to have Visual Basic at home or Visual Studio.
No, that is not true, because in cisp 300 you do not need any tool to take cisp 300. Not the way I teach it.
I mean, for this class, you need to have a Visual Basic
Nope.
runtime.
Nope. You need to have Java, but not Visual Basic.
So you only take the Visual Basic to learn how to write an algorithm.
Correct. Yep. If you think that you have written programs before, but you have not taken a class, you can challenge a co-requisite too. You can just go through the pre-co-requisite challenge form and just write down why you think you have the equivalence of the co-requisite of this class, and then you can get cleared with that. Any questions? No questions? Now I know you may not be able to go through the same steps. If you cannot, no big deal. You can do that. We'll fix the machines in this lab later on. But I want to go ahead and start to do something. I want to illustrate the user interface of the tool that we'll be using in this class. Okay. You can go to the home page of App Inventor, itself. Okay, this is the home page. There are a few other things I want to explain to. App Inventor is based on Scratch. Okay, some of you may have known Scratch, because of my other classes, or on your own you have found, Scratch to be a graphical programming interface where you can write programs just by dragging and dropping. You don't have to learn any syntax whatsoever. App Inventor is kind of like that. It's done by the same people over at MIT. There are several links here that you will find useful. One of the things you can do with App Inventor is you can publish your projects and actually see what other people are doing with App Inventor. You can download projects from other people on the site. It's kind of like YouTube in a way, because you can upload stuff and download stuff. But unlike YouTube, the licensing of whatever you upload or whatever people put up there is automatically open source. Okay, so you can actually see the source code of projects that other people have done. Let me see if I can find the link to the community part. Doesn't show that part. You can also go to stories and see, what type of application people have done, with App Inventor. This should be enough to convince, some of you that this is not really a toy. Even though it looks like a toy, it is really quite capable of writing apps. All right, so I'm going to log in right now and go to invent your own apps now. This is the portal to the tool itself. So I just click that, and it will come to this page. It depends on how you set up your Google accounts. For those of you with multiple Google accounts, it will show multiple options if you have signed in, through multiple of your Google accounts. Since I only signed in through one, only shows this one, which is fine. And then just read the question here. Google is not okay. The application MIT App Inventor Experimental is requesting permission to access your Google account. Please select an account you would like to use. As far as I'm concerned, there's no real security risk, with using App Inventor. So I just click allow, and this is the project management screen of App Inventor. I think it's fairly clean. There's a way to create new projects. Just click new here to create new projects. And once you have projects, you can delete. You can also download your project onto your local drive. Then you can save it on your own drive, or you can upload it as your homework assignment submission. So that's how we're going to turn in homework in this class. So I'll just go ahead and click new here, and there's only one dialog box. You just need to name your project. So I'll just go ahead and say first day of semester. So I'll just call it first day here. Click OK, and now we have the project. It automatically opens up the project itself. This is the main user interface design screen. This is the user interface designer. At this point, you do not need Java just yet. Okay, so you should be able to get to this part just using any major browser. I have tried to use this with Mozilla Firefox, Google Chrome, and also Microsoft Internet Explorer, and all three can get to this page without any problems. Any questions at this point? So this page allows you to design the screen of your app. Okay, it's a drag and drop kind of thing. We'll get to this part, eventually. But for those of you who are impatient and say, "But I want to try something now," well, guess what? You can if you want to. So if you want to put a button on the screen, you just drag and drop it. Okay, it really is that simple. It's drag and drop. So are there any questions at this point about App Inventor, at least with the screen design for page?
Question.
Yep.
You started talking about doable apps. You did give an example of one that's doable and usable.
because that depends on who you are and your experience with programming.
Well, can I just give an example of something that can be done in this semester?
Can be done in this semester. It's kind of hard to describe it at this point because I don't know how many people have programming experience already and how many people do not. You can just report. You can use a tilt sensor, and if the tilt sensor is beyond a certain point, it will just trip an alarm. You can design it that way. We'll get to the devices of mobile devices, and maybe at that point you will get a better idea of what you can do. Okay. Remember, this is just a demonstration. I'm not expecting everybody to be at this point and starting to write apps already. Okay. And you can also see here, it has a components tab here. It shows you hierarchically speaking, how things are organized. We'll get to the properties part. For those of you who know how to use Visual Basic, this should look familiar. Okay, that's why if you're taking cisp362 or have taken that class before this one, you will see a lot of what you already know about VB programming in this class, because both classes are very heavy on user interaction and also user interface objects. All right, so let's go ahead and see what is involved in order to quote unquote write some code. For this part, you do need Java. Okay, click open the blocks editor, and this really is a good test of whether Java is installed. Depending on the browser, some browser will open it up automatically. Google Chrome does not. Okay, it does not seem to be a problem with the operating system. It's a browser itself. It wants to save this file, which is fine. Okay, you can go ahead and just save that file. And once you save the file, it will display here. Then you can click it, and then it will open it. So it's a two-step process with Google Chrome, whereas with Firefox, I think it automatically opens up the application using WebStart. It's a security kind of thing. It wants to make sure that you allow this application to run. It's okay. This is App Inventor for Android Blocks Editor from MIT. So click Start. And depending on how powerful your machine is, this might take a little bit of time because Java takes a little bit of time to start up. I guess this is a pretty fast machine. It's faster than my laptop at home. And this is your programming interface. This is how you write programs. So in order to write your programs, you can go to Control, and your program is really just dragging and dropping these blocks. For those of you who have taken a programming class before, you might notice or you might recognize some of these things. The first one is a conditional statement. If something, then do something. Then we have if then else. We have for each variable do, it goes through a list to do things. We have a while loop here, or otherwise that I call a pre-checking loop. So we have all the control structures here. You can just drag and drop it. So just drag it here, and if you need something else inside that one, you can also drag and drop something else inside the other one. Just like that. So programming in this class is really dragging and dropping. Okay. Now, because we have a button, we can also go through our, let's see here, go through my blocks. These are defined based on what you have in your own application. And under buttons, we have all the things that you can do with buttons. For those of you who are familiar with VB programming, the first few blocks here, the green ones, they are the triggers. In other words, if someone presses on the button, then this block will automatically execute. Okay, I'll explain all of this stuff later, so if you don't get what I'm talking about, don't worry. I just want to give people who already know how to program a little bit of a head start, so they can say, oh, okay, so this is easy, I can do it. So you can put code inside this thing here, so you can drag and drop the block inside. And if you don't want something, you can just put it into the trash can. Are there any questions at this point? Yep.
I clicked on blocks editor.
Yeah, that means you have not installed the App Inventor application that has to be installed on this machine. So if you have installed that first, then it should not ask you. And under built-in, you can also look under math and also logic. So these are logic gates, true, false, negation, conjunction, and disjunction. You can check for equality. Yep.
Also, I was wondering, once you build an app, can you look at the source code to see how it's built and kind of make it on your own without it?
If you
Are you able to just build like a complete app with the algorithm, and then once you complete it, can you just look at this? Are you able to view the source code so you can just use it, write your own app like without the GUI?
that I do not know. I do not think it gives you the equivalent Java code.
So it's just goes straight to the
Sorry?
It just runs in as it just goes straight to the
Well, the interesting part is it will be able to give you the package, the APK file, if you want to get an APK file so that you can actually publish, the software in say, the market. So it will give you the APK file which contains the bytecode for your app, but it doesn't give you the Java source code of the program. As far as I know, okay, maybe it has a feature that, and I have not explored that yet. Okay, so this is basically how you write your program. Okay, you use the block editor in order to write your program. So the next thing is, this is not really a complete program, but I'm just gonna do it like this. Let's make it a semi-complete program. I'm gonna trash this, and in addition, I'll do something built-in text. None of these is a step text. I'm trying to look for something that can print something, or display something on the screen. Okay, I know. Okay, there we go. So I'll go to screen here, and under screen I can do certain things to the screen, and I'm gonna find something that I can do that is obvious. There we go. I can change the screen title. So basically right now it says, if the button is clicked, I'm gonna change the screen title to something. So I'm gonna go to built-in, go to text. Here and change this, and I would call this hello world, and this is my app. Okay, did you guys see me having to deal with any syntax like open curly brace, close curly brace, and that kind of stuff? Nope, it's all drag and drop. So how does this work? I mean, how can I just drag and drop and make sure that the right thing is at the right place? You can see the connector, among the blocks, they're of different shapes. That really is the quote-unquote syntax in this programming environment. An action has this little notch here. If it is not an action, instead it is something you can use as a value, it has this little connector here. So that is really the syntax of this environment, to see what can fit where. You just look at, basically it's like a puzzle, right? Okay, you just see whether the connectors will mate or not. Okay, so now I have a little app here. I'm not quite ready to hook it up to my Android device. So what I would do is I'm going to use an emulator. So I just clicked new emulator to start up a new emulated Android device. Depending on how powerful your machine is, this might take a little bit of time because you can see the warning here. It can take 2 or 3 minutes for the emulator to become ready. So this part depends a lot on how fast of a machine you have and many other factors. These machines in the lab are fairly fast, so I can actually get it up and running pretty quickly. And now we have an emulated Android device. This is not an actual Android device, even though it looks and behaves just like a real Android device. All right, so I'm up and running with my emulator. Now, in order to run the program, I have to click Connect to Device, and it gives me several options. If I have my actual Android device connected through USB, it will display here as well. Okay, so all of the options will be connected here. If you want to, you can even start up multiple emulators and have one to be connected to here and one to be connected somewhere else. But in this case, I only have one emulator, so I'm just going to select that one, and it will automatically upload the program to the emulator. And when it's done, I will have the app running on the inside the emulator. It's still going. There we go. So here's my app. Listening to App Inventor. Your app should display shortly. This is my app running. If I click the button, the caption that says Screen 1 should change to Hello World, because that's what I told the program to do. When the button is pushed, when button 1 is pushed, it should change the title of the screen to Hello World. Okay, so I'm going to do that. Click. And sure enough, the title got changed to Hello World. Okay? So even without knowing anything about programming, conditional statements, loops, variables and whatnot, I can do this already. So are we doing okay so far with the programming environment, the tool that we'll be using for this entire semester? Okay? So for those of you who are ready to program everything in Java, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but we'll be using this graphical user interface instead of Java. For this semester, next semester we'll be using Java. Are there any questions at this point? Yep.
You said it automatically uploads the program, the emulator.
If you click the connected device, yes, it should automatically upload the program. In fact, if I change the program right now, it will change the program on the other side too. So if I change this to okay, and then go back to my Android app here. Oops. See, every time I make changes to the blocks editor, the program gets uploaded automatically. Once you say connect to a certain device, it stays connected. You don't have to say connect again, when you upload the program. So it's automatically updating everything. Are we doing okay so far with this little demonstration? Okay. All right. So let's say you're done here. Okay, you can just click the X here to close the emulator. Doesn't hurt anything. You can also close the block editor if you want to. Everything is automatically saved already, because you can see saved is a grayed out box, which means all the new editing that I've done so far, they're already saved in cloud storage. Okay, you don't have to save it onto your local hard drive. It is up there somewhere. Okay, so I can close this when I'm done, and here's my project. You can click save again if you want to, but it's automatically saved as well. So let's say you're done and you want to download and upload, well, you want to download the project file so you can upload to Moodle, because that's how you turn in your homework assignment. To do that, what you want to do is to go back to My Projects, like this one, and then you click the project that you want to turn in, and that should automatically highlight that item. You go to More Actions and click Download Source. And that should give you a zip file that you can download. And you can just download it onto your local hard drive in Windows or Linux or Mac OS X, doesn't matter which operating system you're using. And then you switch back to Moodle and turn in that file as a homework assignment in Moodle. So are we still doing okay so far? You don't really have a homework assignment just yet. I just want to kind of go a little bit ahead of myself to show you the user interface, because I know that certain people in this class want to get started already. Okay. All right, so now we're getting back. I have another 3 minutes or so for this class before the lab starts. Now we're getting back to take a closer look at mobile devices and why this class is different from your other programming classes in a certain way. Big question is, how do mobile devices differ from other computers? So you don't have to, write any notes here because I'm just going to do a little prop here. These are mobile devices, right? Well, this one is somewhat mobile, okay, because it's really kind of big. I can't really put it into my pocket. If I have a pocket this big, it'll be kind of cumbersome because my pants will have to be kind of big too. So it's somewhat mobile, and this is a truly kind of mobile device. It's my cell phone. But it really is not a cell phone. It's a computer pretending to be a cell phone. Okay? This is how I look at mobile devices. They are not cell phones. They're really computers pretending to be something else, pretending to be a device that has other purposes. What makes this different compared to my desktop computer here? It's smaller, miniaturized, right? But other than that, what else? What else makes this, my cell phone, different from a desktop computer?
Processor.
Sorry?
Portable.
Portable?
Different processor structure.
Processor architecture is different. Yep. But as far as high-level programming is concerned, architecture doesn't really. It's not that important to programmers. Okay, it is important if you're designing the device, but as a programmer, it should not make a whole lot of differences. Well, let's see what else I'm talking about here. You can read ahead of me if you want to. Mobility, right? Now, mobility has major implications on many other things. Mobility means a device can stay with its user a whole lot better than a not so mobile device. Even compared to my laptop computer, I can carry this all day long with me. But I can't really carry my laptop computer with me all day long. It's kind of heavy, it's kind of big, it's bulky. But this, I can just put it into my pocket and it stays with me the whole day. But why would that make any significant, why is that important when you're writing applications or exploring what kind of applications can be written? Okay, let's think about it this way. How many of you have a pedometer just so that you can count the number of steps you walk each day? Well, I do because I want to lose some weight, okay? And you have one too. What if I write an app, a pedometer app, on a laptop computer? Well, it can be very accurate, but who is going to carry a laptop computer all day long just so that you can use that computer to count the number of steps you have walked?
The extra exercise. Extra exercise.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. But something like this, absolutely, right? A pedometer app on a cell phone makes sense. Okay. And that's a big differentiation. Now, I'm running out of time today, so I'm not going to get into this part. Now, this is also a good time to kind of explain what you can do when at the end of a class. This is where I'll stop at this point. So what you want to do is to pick up at this point and read ahead of me before Wednesday, or review the stuff that I have already talked about. The stuff that I have talked about is easy to see because if you go back to the top of the class, I'm just hitting these topics sequentially. Okay, it's just going through the list, and at this point we are already in Introduction to Mobile Devices, and it is the first link, which is this one here, Mobile Devices, that we are partially through. For those of you who want to go through more of these modules, go ahead and read way ahead of me. It's no problem whatsoever. Okay. The next one, is kind of interesting because I don't golf. Okay, that's not my sport. But I'm just thinking, if you are a golfer, what kind of an app may be helpful to you? Okay, so that will kind of help you explore what a mobile device can do, and what devices or what electronics inside a mobile device can lend itself to applications that are just not feasible and not possible on a desktop or even a laptop computer. So read ahead of me if you want to, and the lecture portion is done. Now I want to show you where to find my YouTube channel, because I promised you that I will be uploading everything here. So what you do is go to YouTube, and then you look for some profs. And some profs is a channel, so you go to the some prof channel. Now you have several things you can do if you have signed in like what I have done already. Well, I'm not signed into YouTube because the apps.lostreals.edu account is not linked to YouTube. But if you have signed in already, there should be a link for you to subscribe to my channel. If you don't subscribe to my channel, no big deal. Go to videos. Okay, go to the videos tab, and what it does is it will show my recordings sorted by date. The most recent one will be the first ones you listed. So that would be a good way to browse through my video links of class recording. I have recordings of my classes for the past 2 years or so. So you're more than welcome to browse the other ones. But for this particular class, it will have titles like 2013-08 because it's August 26 today, and it will say ARC CISP 362. So that's how you can find recordings of lectures like this one. It will be uploaded as soon as I stop the recording. Any questions about how to find class recordings on YouTube? Questions? All right. If there are no questions, I'm